All right, good evening, and seeing that 6:02, we will get started with our meeting tonight. Today's March 10th, Monday, March 10th, and it's the Finance Committee meeting, in which tonight we had on our agenda the Region 10 budget, and we're going to review Heidi's superintendent's budget proposal, and then we have some time for public comment. So without any delay, we'll get into it. And unfortunately, we had some scheduling conflicts arise, so we are going to need to reschedule the Region 10 budget presentation. It looks like we have confirmed we'll have Superintendent Shabbat here Monday, March 24th, to present to us then, in which is the evening we plan to kick off deliberations. So apologies to anybody who's tuning in for that, but that will be moved to 2 weeks out. And with that, we will go to agenda item 2, which is our fiscal year 2026 superintendent's budget proposal.
Well, good evening, everyone. Lydia Leary here as the superintendent presenting her budget and
Hello, my name is Evan Howard. I'm the business manager here for the district, and I'm excited to present this information to you all.
great. So we're grateful to our board members, our staff, and our community for joining us as we review our district's financial outlook and priorities for this coming year. Budget. So we are going to start with the Finance Committee goal for 2026, and Ryan is going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just walk through this real briefly. And we kind of established a goal in our fiscal year 25 process, and it seemed to serve us real well as kind of a guiding light throughout the process to come back to and help us stay focused on the tasks that we had at hand, especially in these challenging times for budgeting. For fiscal year 2026 goal that the committee established in our first couple of meetings back last fall, the goal reads to conduct a process that creates increased and earlier public awareness in developing a sustainable budget supporting the msad number 75 mission and to provide for the needs of our district with minimal impact to the local contribution. So for those of you listening, that just kind of helped guide us through the thinking, the work that we've been doing as a committee to this point. It helped guide the work that Heidi and her team has done as well to look to ensure that we are meeting the students and district needs, but understanding that those do create an impact on the local taxpayer, and we want to be conscious of that. Additionally, I want to call out the piece that we added here about sustainability, or sustainable budget, excuse me. And really, as we're working into our strategic plan for the district, we want to start to think a little bit more holistically and bigger picture and longer term in these budget developments so that we can see what's coming 2, 3, 4 years out and begin to do that work a little bit more ahead of time. So the thought in bringing that piece into this was just to start to think about things that way again as we start to work into our strategic plan, which we'll be putting into place this year. So excited for that. And with that, we'll hand it back to you, Heidi.
Great, thank you, and I really appreciate it. So district mission, 4 communities of Maine School Administrative District number 75 are united in our dedication to develop confident, fluent learners, critical thinkers, and creative contributors to our society. Although this will change a little bit when we reveal or unveil our new strategic plan. There's been a lot of work going into that. But what I really want to mention is our budget planning process really is the cornerstone of our commitment to providing high quality educational experiences for all of our students. And it enables us to align our financial resources with the district's mission, ensuring that curriculum development, instructional materials, staff training, and our student support services are adequately funded. Our team of district administrators worked diligently to review the needs and priorities of our schools while carefully assessing budget constraints and making requests based on needs. I commend them for their work and care that they put into these requests. And our goal is really to implement a budget that reflects fiscal responsibility and meets the needs of our students and staff with minimal increases. However, we recognize that the rising salary costs significantly impact our budget, and so to address these, we meticulously analyzed our ED 279 to ensure that we were maximizing our state subsidy, and this includes closely scrutinizing staff ratios and exploring ways to enhance enrollment, such as expanding pre-K programs to better and serve our community's youngest learners. I wanted to start with a picture of teachers, students, and a word cloud. I had the opportunity on Saturday night to attend the Maine Teacher of the Year Gala in Bangor, Maine. It was really my first time doing this to such an event, and I was deeply moved by the celebration of our extraordinary educators. Words like talented, gifted, modest, passionate, and champion of kids filled the room, perfectly capturing the dedication of teachers who make a lasting impact on our students' lives. Among those honored were 4 exceptional educators from Mount Arrett High School. Allison Gilbert, who is in the middle, right here if you can see my cursor. She is this year's Saginaw County Teacher of the Year, whose belief that a robust education serves as the cornerstone of nurturing a generation of informed, empathetic, and analytical thinkers reflects the very mission of our schools. Rob Messier, who is over here on the end, was last year's Saginaw County Teacher of the Year, and he continues to inspire both students and colleagues in his unwavering commitment. Josh Enos is over here, and he's a science teacher at the high school. He attended because his very own wife won one of the counties. I'm forgetting which one it was, but he highlighted the strong sense of community among our educators. And then Susie Braun, who is one of our teachers at the high school as well. She is a co-ed educator, and she was the one that nominated Allison, which exemplifies the collaborative spirit that enriches all of our schools. Really, what struck me the most was not just the recognition of these incredible teachers, but the excitement and inspiration in the room. The energy was palpable as we gave standing ovations, many of them, and applauded those who often go unrecognized, not because they seek praise, but because they are driven by a genuine desire to make a difference for our kids. Our teachers change lives. They provide safe, nurturing environments where students can explore, grow, and thrive. They spark curiosity and instill confidence. They model empathy and resilience, equipping our students with the tools that they need to succeed, not just academically, but as thoughtful, engaged members of our community. So I start our budget presentation with this story because while numbers are important, it is our students' experiences that truly matter. Every dollar in our budget is a chance to support the educators who guide our kids, who create opportunities for learning, and who help each child find their voice and full potential. So as we move through the budget discussion, let's keep at the forefront the impact that these investments have on our students. By supporting teachers and staff, we are directing in our kids' futures, ensuring they receive the quality education and encouragement that they need to become the next generation of leaders, problem solvers, and compassionate citizens. Thank you all, and thank everyone, all teachers and staff in our school community, for their commitment to our students and our educators, and I look forward to explaining how our budget can continue to support this vital work. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the evolving landscape of education, the evolving educational landscape. Nationally, there is an enrollment trend where public school enrollment in the U.S. is experiencing a significant shift, with experts warning that consistent growth between 1990 and 2019 was unlikely. That definitely happened. Local impact on msad75 as Maine faces these broader educational trends. We must strategically plan to adapt potential enrollment declines while continuing to provide high-quality education and support for our students. Overall in Maine, the decline has happened. You can see that back in 2016, we had an enrollment in the state of Maine of 182,005, and currently in 2021, we have gone down to 171,061. What are the causes of that? Many believe that part of the largest drop obviously happened between 2020 and 2021 with the COVID pandemic, where many families and students chose not to come back to school, and we've significantly gone down. Every year, we base our child count on October 1st with how many students that we have each year, and you can see that we follow the same trend line. Really, back in 2016, we were at 2,415 students. For some reason, we rose up during 2020, and then we've been on a significant trend downward since then into 2024. And again, this is the October 1st, 2024 child count, and each year is based on that number. This year, right now at this moment, as of March 7th, actually, it's March 10th now, just a few days ago, we were even a little bit lower at 2285. And you can see that we had 718 students at the high school, 525 middle school, 295 at Woodside Elementary being our largest elementary school, 226, 130, 190, and 198 at Bowdoin Central. So we are having, some lower numbers there for 2285. Some of you may like to see the current enrollment this way. Everybody likes to see different formats. So I put that there. And this again is March 7th, but our funding is based on the October 1st child count. I just think it's important for you to see how the trends start to show. So in this slide, we are talking about promoting optimal class size. And it's important to know that the district approach, and I share this slide really because the district's approach to class size is rooted in a longstanding philosophical commitment to making smaller, more effective learning environments, while increasing class size could potentially improve our budget by reducing the need for additional teachers. msad75 has consistently prioritized educational quality over budgetary gains. The district firmly believes that smaller class sizes contribute to better student outcomes, providing individualized attention and support at every grade level. So by establishing, and we have our optimal class sizes, and again, these are optimal class sizes by policy, we ensure that teaching remains impactful and that students receive attention they need to thrive academically and socially. And then the flexibility within this allows the district to manage enrollment changes while upholding its commitment. So I wanted to really show you two areas that you'll see in the budget. When we talk about adding 2 teachers, Harpswell Community School has requested a kindergarten teacher again this year, and then Bowdenham has requested a grades 4-5 teacher. And right here you can see in 2024-25, that's this year, what the enrollment numbers are. For Harpswell, you can see this, and you'll notice that this little number right here is kindergarten. Kindergarten right now at the moment has only 16 students enrolled. However, we are projecting that there will be 29 to 30 students enrolled this year based on what the daycares in the area are saying. So that some people haven't registered. So if you're listening and you're a incoming kindergarten parent, get those kids registered because we want to see what the numbers are. It's really important for our budget. And then Bowdenham has this year 18 and 26 in a grade 5, and next year you can see that those numbers are going to increase. So we're looking to add an extra 5th grade class from next year to split up those numbers by what we have for moving up the scale. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through. So again, the administrators have worked really hard. We almost start the budget season right from the very beginning of the signing of the first of the year before budget. So in June, July, we start talking about it. And administrators this year were very modest in their requests. And again, I go back to say that they requested these items on need based on what they feel that the schools need. So let me just go down through. MAMS has requested a regular education social worker, and Megan has come and talked to you all about what we have on the Say Something app and the number of calls that we get and the number of visits to the nurse's office for mental health and wellness needs. And based on the 15 to 17 in the first month of calls for suicidal ideation to the Say Something app, she is requesting a regular ed social worker to provide more intervention for that. Bowdenham, I had explained to you already about the numbers there in the 5th grade. Dr. Hoffman requested an English teacher at the high school. However, we've worked together to talk about how he might do that differently, and he's removing that request. Amy Hall has come to you and talked to you about the BCBA's, adding that to the budget. We've reduced it so that we're not going to add one, whoops, I'm sorry, we're not going to add one to the high school, and we've removed that, but we're adding one to the middle school. First, we're not quite sure that we're going to actually get 2 full-time BCBA's. It's not a position that you can hire easily for, and I don't want that to sit there and wait. So we're thinking of different things. Harpswell Community School, Anita has requested another kindergarten teacher, and I've added 2 pre-K programs, one to Harpswell and one to Woodside Elementary. And then Rick and the team, the principals, requested 9 district universal subs. And so we added that money in there so that you could see what the requests were. Those were for personnel. Then we had some non-personnel requests and software from the bus. We currently use Traverser at the transportation department, and we are requesting to change that from Traverser to Busrite because the system helps to monitor and track where students and the buses are, so parents can go on an app and see the actual time that their bus should arrive. There's many other features to it, but I think that's the most significant to draw out. And then the Yonder pouches are the pouches that with the new cell phone initiative that we're hoping to move forward, we added $50,000 for those Yonder pouches, and that's the cost for that. Am I going way too fast?
You're cruising through it. The location for the Yonder prices, is it just MTA or is it MAMS as well for that price?
Yeah, yes, it's both schools, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I think when we calculated it, it was 30,000 for the high school because it had a larger population, and then about 20,000 for the middle school. That's how that broke out.
Yep. Thank you. And so now I am going to turn this lovely presentation over to Evan because he is going to explain our budget summary.
Thank you, Heidi. That was a really great setup to where we are today with the budget summary. So as you all can see at the very bottom here, our budget for 2025, 2026, the superintendent's budget is $57,510,402.94. This represents a 4.85% increase over the fiscal year 25 budget. There are some cost drivers that are really influencing this budget, and I'll just lay out a few of them and we can dig into them a little bit later. But really, health insurance premiums are one of them. We had to calculate a health insurance premium increase of about 8%. And I know last year we had calculated at 6%, and at the last minute we're surprised. So I wanted to be conservative here by going a little bit higher. Still waiting on information to come back about what that will be. Property and general liability, if anyone's tuned into previous Finance Committee meetings, I have outlined that our insurance broker is recommending that we budget an 18% increase for all property and liability, and that's due to various natural disasters that have happened throughout the country that are driving those rate increases. In addition, things that are also driving the increase in cost is increases in contractual salary and benefit raises. So just signed a new contract with the support staff, and we're currently in negotiations with the teachers union. So those collective bargaining contracts are what are really driving various categories, particularly warrant article number 2, regular instruction, article number 3, special education, and as well as number 6, student and staff support. And then finally, this may not come to a surprise to most people, but the overall prices of goods and services continue to rise nationwide, and this is a reflection of that through the 4.8% increase. For those who like to view the budget in a different light, here is the budget broken down by percentage in a helpful pie chart. Regular instruction is 31, close to 32% of the overall budget. Special education is close to 20%. Those are the 2 biggest categories within this. You can see after that, facilities maintenance, then debt service, and transportation are the other large factors. And I guess also student and staff support, but that's okay. Stay right here. You can go to the next one. Yep. We spent a lot of time, Heidi and myself, over the last couple of weeks, figuring out some reductions that we could utilized to bring the overall impact to the taxpayers down. The first category above the green line, total eliminations, these are all positions that have been unfilled for over 1 year and we've had trouble hiring for. Because these positions have been unfilled for such a long time and it hasn't impacted our current services to the students, we made the decision that we could eliminate these positions from the budget and it would save us a combined $323,000 just by eliminating positions that have been unfilled over the course of over 1 year. In addition, we took a look at some of the new requests that the administrators had outlined for us, and after some talks with administrators and internally, we have decided that it would be possible to eliminate these 4 requests from the administrators, and those include the English teacher at the high school, the kindergarten teacher / pre-K at Harpswell, the BCBA at the high school, and then finally the universal subs for the district.
One note on this, it's either because of the way the numbers are working out, we are looking at options for the kindergarten teacher and pre-K for Title I. We can't put both of them in there, so it would either be the kindergarten teacher or the pre-K teacher. We can't have both, but we are working on some options through Title I that we may be able to secure both positions. So that one is still a little bit of a question mark. But if we were to go to the budget the way that it's done right now, we would have to at least cut one of those positions.
So these overall eliminations will save the district significant amount of money and keep that percentage increase down overall. I wanted to highlight the historical view of the state of Maine's aid to the district. You can see that since 2018/19, we have steadily increased the amount of aid that we've received from the Maine Department of Education. The good news to all of this is that although our enrollment is dropping, we are continuing to see increases in our state subsidy. The bad news is that the state subsidy isn't rising as quickly as we maybe like it to be. We did receive an extra $200,000 in our state subsidy for this upcoming fiscal year, and that was after really digging into the ED 279. We spent a lot of time optimizing that, and the $200,000 increase is due to the rising cost of special education, particularly contracted services, and just the overall rising costs in that category statewide.
Evan, if I can just ask one or a clarifying piece, sort of more for the folks at home, but just to help understand what you said there, kind of, I think, or to simplify it a little. In effect, while the state's contribution is rising, it's not rising at the same level. The budgets and our costs rise, and so it's not actually keeping up with its percentage in effect, so that the portion that the local tax base is responsible for it grows in a situation like that, correct?
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. That's exactly right. I will present those numbers in a couple slides of what the impact to the towns will be. So thank you for teeing that up.
Yeah, you did a great job. I just was making it really simple because that's what I needed for me to understand it, so thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, so perfect. So the state of Maine says that, in order to fund a quality education for our schools, they say the cost of an education is $39 million, just shy of $39 million. And they came in at just over $21 million, which is only 37% of the budget that we have outlined here tonight, which is 57 million. So if you want to go to the next slide, I want to talk about how the agreement for those at home, how we calculate the way that each town is responsible for their share of funding the budget. It is 2 things that we average together. The first is the property valuations, and I'm sorry that it might have gotten cut off here, but the first column is Bowdoin, the second one's Bowdenham, third one is Harpswell, and then the last one is Topsom. I apologize for everyone out there who is watching this. But what we do is we take the state valuation and property, and then we also look at enrollments by town, and we take those 2 numbers, We add them together and then divide by 2 to find the average. And then that is what the proposed allocation for how the breakup of the amount of money that needs to be funded by the towns. There are 3 notes that I have here. This information is all provided by the Maine Department of Education. This is information that they provide on our ED 279. For those listening at home, the ED 279 is a form that we get every late January, early February from the state, and it outlines everything from property values to enrollment. It talks about how much subsidy we receive, and so if anyone has any questions about what that document is, you can go on the Maine DOE website and download it and take a look to see how your town is reflected on there. Point number 2 is the district's local cost sharing formula is based on 50% evaluation of property and 50% on student enrollment. I touched on that earlier. And then finally, 3, this is recalculated every budget cycle as new enrollment data and property value data is released. Here is the funding detail that I mentioned. So what we are proposing as a budget is $57,510,403. We also are responsible for $175,000, which goes towards the Merry Meeting Adult Education. Their budget is funded by RSU 1, Brunswick, and msad75. So this is our portion, $175,000. We have to subtract the state subsidy from this calculation, which is, as I mentioned, $21 million. We also are expecting to use our fund balance, which is just the same number that we used last year, $2.56 million. And then I'm also calculating that we'll receive about $50,000 in other revenue. And that other revenue can be things like gate receipts, donations, building use fees, and that has consistently been year over year around $50,000. So if we take all that and we calculate it, the amount that needs to be locally funded by the 4 towns and the taxpayers is $34 million. $34 million, 20,234. So the town impact for that is an increased district-wide of $2.4 million, and that represents a 7.8 district-wide increase that we will have to fund locally. Please. That's it for me. Anyone have any questions before we continue?
Thanks, Evan. Can you explain the difference between the 7.8 district-wide increase and the Heidi's overall 4.8?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our budget increase from 2025 to 2026 went up 4.8%. If the state subsidy had been at the same rate of increase, it would only be a 4.85% increase over for the towns. But because the state subsidy didn't keep track with the same rate of increase that our budgets are, that's why the town has to increase to make up the difference. Good question.
Yeah, Holly.
I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, and this is not the best place to ask this question, but in regards to the universal subs, is that a flat rate as in no matter how many universal subs? I can't remember.
So we calculated on about $85,000 a year because with universal subs, if you hire somebody, you also have to pay them benefits. And it depends on whether or not they're at the teacher level or whether at the para level support staff. And so we added in 85,000, I think it was 85,000, is that correct? Yeah, 85,000 for each of those subs. And that's what the calculation is.
And how many subs was that?
That was only 9.
9, thank you.
Yeah. Which is not enough to cover a daily.
Well, that was
needs
going to
for
be my
subs.
next question is what would be the bare minimum that would be necessary? 9, if that.
Maybe more
More.
because we use, yes.
Understood, thank
Yes.
you.
We maximize our sub list when, especially during times when people are out sick and vacations and all that.
Just really quickly, I feel like Rick Dudek was saying he needs like there were times he needed 3 or 4 subs a day at his school, let alone all the other
Correct.
schools.
And when you look at the cost of what it is for currently 4 subs overall, and then you add an additional, because you really can't get rid of the sub list because it's not enough people to cover.
The other thing I will say too about the universal subs is that we have brought on a new program called Smart Find Express, and we've done a really good job of bringing in more substitute teachers and making sure that that list is accurate. And, you know, through some technological changes, we're able to notify more subs when there are open positions. And I like to think that that change in the way we use that software is helping that problem in the long run.
True.
One more follow-up question. How much are we spending on subs right now? Roughly, or do we know?
I think we budget about $500,000 a year on substitute teachers.
And this would be in addition to?
This would
what
be
we're
in
already-
addition to that.
Thank you.
And the explanation to that really is that previously we've had universal subs in the budget during the COVID times. And we hired them as just subs, but these people would be available every day. And that means they're employed by us, which means then we now have to provide benefits. Any more questions about the budget itself? Or I go on to.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, just kidding. Okay, so I just wanted to, I really have a passion to figure out how to increase enrollment in our school districts. And when I did a research study on what those two things are, or what things are that could help us with that, adding pre-K to our school system is really, really important. We already have 2 pre-K programs in our district, and we're looking to add 2 more, but also collaborate with the state of Maine and Child Development Services, which will empower our most vulnerable students to have services in the 3 to 5-year-old range. The other thing, which we'll talk about later on in a few weeks at a board meeting, is the use of solar arrays and how that can help to offset some of the costs for our district. But as for pre-K benefits, early introduction to the school district, we know who they are. They're in our district at young ages. We want to establish these connections really early. We're excited to be able to do that. And by doing programs like this, this is all research-based. I have the data and the references to attach to this, so that for those that would like to look at it. We build our trust in the district, and it increases the likelihood that we can keep the children enrolled in kindergarten and beyond. And that is what our goal is. Higher student retention. Students who begin in pre-K are more likely to continue through the district for all the years afterwards, rather than opting out maybe of private or charter schools. And they continue those institutions instead of transitioning out of the district. And improve kindergarten readiness. We want kids to come in earlier these days, and we want more academic success for them so that they're more ready academically and socially to be in our school district. And we want to make that commitment to more children in our district. So increased family engagement. When you have the ability to bring students in, we are now educating and engaging children earlier and advocating. Strong family engagement leads to higher retention rates, because the more we work with them at a younger age, we're building that connection. More competitive advantages as well. And they can really experience the full K through 12 experience, and then adding these strengthens our enrollment across the board. So we would have 2 additional classrooms with 16 students in each of those classrooms, which that would give us 4 classrooms, and then maybe 5 the following year if we were able to do that. So universal pre-K is one of the most cost-effective when you're talking about the active labor market. Oftentimes parents have to bring their children to daycare, and not that we want to take away from daycare options, but we want to get eyes on children earlier. So it's an option to increase parents' earnings, and it has a positive impact on parental employment and their earnings, is what the research is saying. So return on investment, and I had to really think about this a lot, but every dollar invested in pre-K generates $4 return. And this high quality childhood education can yield $4 to $9 per $1 invested in early childhood. And what does that mean? It means long-term impact, cost savings, reduce special ed costs because we're intervening earlier, lower grade repetition rates because children who are in pre-K are more likely to progress through school on time, which reduces the costs associated with repeated grades. And as adults, they're less likely to need public assistance. There's some references there, and I have one final statement to read, and I just want to say, find my notes again. I'm in your budget, Evan, wrote your notes. So by providing young learners with a strong foundation, we can reduce the need for costly interventions, lower grade repetition rates, and decrease future reliance on social services. These benefits extend beyond the classroom, contributing to a robust local economy and a more vibrant, resilient community. The investment we make in all our children today builds the foundation for a stronger tomorrow, ensuring every student has the opportunity to thrive. That is why school budgets are so important. They are not just financial documents, they are commitments to our children, our families, and our future. Thank you for your continued support and partnership as we work together to create the best possible educational opportunities for all students in msad 75. That's it.
All right, thank you. Do we have, yeah, Jim?
If I can go backwards, and Evan, on slide 20, and I remember Brad Totten a year ago asking the same question, but the algorithm, when we look at the numbers, the Bowdoin recognition is going to be an increase of 10% as opposed to some significantly lower percentage increases.
Right.
Can you, in layman's term, because I'm confident that question will come forward,
Yeah.
how come? Where are the numbers that lead to that percentage? Not the raw number, but the scale of the increase.
Yeah, so the way that this formula was calculated was really from lower enrollment of students within the town. That's one of the driving factors here. That and property values. I will say, just to elaborate on the question that Jessica also asked earlier, is why do we have to make up a 7.2% on taxes, but the budget increase is only 4.85%? And the reason there is that the state subsidy only increased 0.97%. So if that's how much our state subsidy is going to increase, but we see that the cost of operating the district is going up 4.8%, that's where the change, that's where we need to fundraise a little bit more.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, Bowdoin and Bowdenham's state property valuations have increased faster than Topsom and Harpswell's. Is that correct?
Let me just refer to my notes real quick.
The previous slide had it too, I think.
Yep, exactly.
I'm all out of order.
So
Yes, okay.
half of each town's responsibility is based on property tax valuations, and those two towns happen to be growing faster than the other two. Their percentage change is going to be bigger.
Yep. Well said. And like I said before, Bowdoin, Bowdenham, Harpswell, and then Topsom. Sorry to have that. cut out.
Alphabetical.
Alphabetical, correct.
And tipping off that, I think we can all acknowledge that, seeing a property valuation rise this much, we know doesn't mean liquidity is rising in the same way or income rising in the same way. And this is yet again why I will bang my drum about, our reliance on property taxes puts us in a bind in these situations. It's just not the fault of anyone in this room. It's the structure that we're given.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll just add a comment on the pre-K. I mean, for all the reasons you said, it's exciting that we're going to offer more opportunities to the town, to the people in the town for pre-K. But I also think for the last 2, 3, 5 years. There's been press, national stories, other stories about test scores and what are you doing about test scores? And this is a direct response to how we're trying to help our kids raise test scores to the extent that's our goal, because research says start teaching them younger. So we hope that this pays off as these 3-year-olds become 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 8th graders
That's the goal. Yeah.
in a change in that direction.
We've only released the registration for the last week. I think it was on Friday, we released it, Thursday or Friday. And we already have 34 students for pre-K signed up. That's huge. So we're anticipating more.
Along those lines, as you know, are adding pre-K classrooms, we're joining, I believe, cohort 2 for the CDS rollout next year, which is great. And getting in as early as we can is really smart. So thank you for that leadership, Heidi. Is there any thought about moving us towards a universal pre-K deployment? Because as we absorb the CDS, we need to make sure that like those kids aren't sequestered in a classroom just of the kids who've been identified, right? They need to be part of their peer group. So we'll need to sort of expand our pre-K offerings to balance that, is my understanding.
That is 100% what we're going to be doing, is universal pre-K for everybody so that all students regardless. Now, some students will stay because of the cohort and because of the needs of students. Some students may stay in their daycares and be serviced in their daycares but the idea is to get as many students as we can across the board in here, having the services that they need, but also for other students as well. So that is the design of it.
Awesome. And for anyone listening, CDS, Child Development Service in the state of Maine, is handing off 3, 4, and 5-year-old responsibility to school districts over the next, today's year 1 of a 5-year plan. Is that right, Heidi? So some schools, which are referred to as cohort 1, have begun that transition this year, and we will be joining cohort 2 next year in the 2nd year of the transition, which is really good. And I think I saw something that suggested we're the only district in our regional CDS office that's in cohort 2, so we should get some good attention from them, which is nice.
Yes.
We'll give it a couple extra awkward pauses here just to see if anybody thinks of something else they want to ask tonight, since we're all here and we have a little extra time. But really appreciate the thoroughness, the thoughtfulness that you and the team, Heidi, have brought to this whole process. It's been a difficult budgetary season, and to come to a percent change of 4.85 on what it costs to move this district forward like we are, I think says a lot about the hard work you guys have done. So thank you for that.
I do want to say that to get to the 4.85%, we really had to scrub the budget and really check every single line and every single position to see what we might have been missing. And, Evan has a really keen eye in his team, so I'm really thankful for that.
Good work your first time through.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
So I think we'll all probably have more questions at our next deliberation meeting once you've absorbed this. But just throwing out information for us to think about, right? If we wanted to keep the local share increase to 5%, right? If that's where we wanted to cap this, looking at the math quickly, we'd have to cut $885,000 out of this budget, right? Which is a lot. That's 10 plus teachers. That's a lot of services. I say that not because that's what I think we should try to do. I say that to sort of point out what meaningful change means if we were to try to go in that kind of direction. So that's like just a milestone we can use to sort of gauge ourselves against, which again, I'm not stating that as a goal necessarily, but as a thought experiment.
Yeah, and I would just maybe add to the thought that comes to my mind kind of as you were saying that was the unique challenges of our district create a bigger gap there. We have, 4 communities with 6 elementary schools, 5. It's been a long day, too many. 5 elementary schools. It's like, these impacts are kind of exaggerated a bit or, larger in a situation like that at times than they are in a district, because the state doesn't look at a district that's all concentrated into 3 schools living all on the same block or something any differently than they do ours. So we have a lot of compounding things that make us unique, and I think would be difficult to talk about wanting to change, but sometimes they end up driving some of these differences as well.
I would agree with that. I really appreciate you bringing that up because in preparation, if the worst case scenarios happen, we have categorized where we would need to go. And everything that we've removed from the budget right now doesn't affect people. It affects positions that were either unused. We did it through retirements and resignations. So we haven't had to say to anybody that we're heading down this road. Which is really positive. But if we have to dig deeper, it significantly concerns me because they will be, like I said, we will take away services from students and from staff and from the community. And that's important to recognize.
Sorry, I'm slow coming up with my questions.
That's why I try to still draw it out.
The fund balance use, are we, and if it's in a table and I missed it, I want to apologize. What's the change in the fund balance use from last year's budget to this proposed budget?
It is completely flat.
None. Okay.
Yes, it's completely flat. We're
Great.
expecting to use the same amount this year as we used last year.
Great. And I know we talked about last year, like the money we put towards strategic planning as sort of being a one-off, but then I look at this year and like the yonder pouches and I see similar one-offs that sort of absorb that number in a non-recurring cost kind of perspective. Again, you haven't spelled it out that way. That's me looking at it, but I sort of feel like at a glance that balances out more or less, which makes sense and I think is good that we're keeping that thought in mind because as we said at our last meeting, right, going into the fund balance for recurring costs only helps you once and you're on the hook all the times in the future. Whereas one-off costs, it makes a lot of sense for it. So that's great.
The 220,000 that's right here, the minus, that's the strategic plan and the
Great.
That's food service. most of
food
it.
service, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi, for that clarification.
This is a mechanical question maybe, but I assume underneath all of this is more line items, and is that going to be available to us? Or is it already available? And I mean, if anyone were to want to peruse deeper levels of this.
Make it available.
Yeah, we use it as our working document right now, and so there were so many changes every minute of
Oh,
the
yeah, I'm
day,
sure.
even up to
If
the
it's not ready, that's fine. But
Yeah.
I'm just curious if,
It's, it could be ready, obviously, for viewing reasons. We're fine with that. And so we would have to put that, so lock it up however we do that. But yeah, that's not an issue. And you can really see exactly where every single dollar is spent through that summary, budget summary.
don't rush it, but when you're ready, that would be
Yeah.
a great tool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Transparency is important.
Okay, some just general thoughts. So when we were talking, you were talking about the suggested reductions. Would it be possible to maybe suggest the MTA and the MAMS BCBA together? Like they could have one that could be split between the two.
That is
Is
the
that,
plan.
okay,
Yeah.
yep, sorry, you
That's
probably
okay.
said that already. And then in regards, I'm still stuck on the universal subs. So the 500,000 in addition to the, so what they're suggesting, right, or what we had come up for a basic number, for that number, we're gonna have to save somewhere, right, hopefully? In terms of, so if there's a 500,000 that we're already using for subs, and then there's this 595,000, that's hopefully going to potentially wash somewhere maybe. Will there be savings from the universal subs, I think is really what I'm trying to gather.
Maybe,
Okay.
that's the thing. It's hard to say because on a daily basis, how many subs do we actually use? And if we have 9 subs throughout the district, there's more, and basically 2, let's say 2 at Woodside, but those are 2 pairs. If we had 10 teachers out in one day, which has happened in the past, right? It happens frequently. Just, that brings us way up above and beyond what the universal subs are.
Yeah, I think it's not a one-to-one. Because, yeah, because adding up all the individual subs that we get is less than having an employee. But the truth is that there will be days when we don't have as much coverage as we would have had if we had I mean, it would be great if we had the universal subs. We would probably be able to fill in all the gaps with the regular subs, and we would never have teachers covering for each other so that's the trade-off we're talking about. Like, we will live with some holes in days in buildings without it.
Is universal subs again here? Is that ever an option to discuss at collective bargaining, or am I just pulling that right out of left field? Because it's a staffing issue.
I'm just processing what you said. I don't see it as a collective bargaining agreement because I don't know how, I would have to really think about that, but I don't know how we would add that type of position to an agreement. I really am not sure. I don't know if anybody else.
I mean, they would be
wanna-
part of the union because they'd be,
Just thinking out loud, they would be teachers.
They'd be teachers.
They'd be teachers.
But
They
you
would
wouldn't
be regular
negotiate.
Teachers, and they would be 9 more members of the regular union,
Yeah,
and they would come in on the pay scale and.
right. They'd come in and so that's the benefits, it's salaries and benefits, but also a universal sub.
Or I guess they would be a support staff, maybe not teachers.
They'd be paras.
Yeah.
But they'd be covered by a CBA. But I don't think the positions would be negotiated through a CBA.
I'm just trying to figure that
No, they
out.
wouldn't, because the thing is that to be on the teacher's contract, there's a certain they have to have certain credentials. And they'd have to meet the credentials within what the contract says and what we require them to meet for those positions. Unless you did it as a stipend, unless you did it as a one-off, I don't know, I'd have to
No.
really think about
Yeah,
this
they would
one.
probably be paras.
Yeah, yeah. And then does that mean that they would cover classes of teaching advanced physics or, any of those classes? I don't know.
Right.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. I just recognize the district need for a lot of subs, and I recognize the difficulty of the budgeting of it. And
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to think outside the box. And it does just seem like at a very layman's level that we go through the contract negotiations every year, and that's to provide staffing, and yet there's this gap in staffing. And so I just didn't know if that was
Yeah.
anything that anybody had thought of or
Well-
does.
I don't know if this answers your question or not, but there are clauses in the contract that say we can't make the current teachers cover more than, they get their lunch and they get
Right,
things like that. They can't be pulled,
right.
they can't cover too much.
Right. And the other thing that the contract does, which
So it limits it more than adds to it.
we can't hire contracted people to replace teachers, right? So we have had to do that in the past for, say, like a special education teacher, because there's just not enough of them. But we have to go through a process with the association because there's a contract for a reason. And if we're pulling in teachers, so there's so many different checkpoints on this that I have to really think about what that would look like, but.
On that same topic of the universal subs, I think that it's a good thing for us to keep in mind. And I sort of recognize that you're not recommending it this year, and I think that's the right call. But I think we should see that be part of our conversation next year and the year after and the year after. Because I do think that with that stability, from a hiring perspective, we'll be able to hire easier. It'll be a load off our administrators. Like, I think if we can get to a point where where we can afford it, I think it's going to pay off more than its straight up dollar value. But I think it's hard to justify in a year like this with the percentage we're looking at.
Yeah. The other thing is that, as Evan was saying, through our new Smart Find Express system, by putting things into systems that we hadn't had before, we have uncovered applications that might have been missed in the past. And that is a good sign. We have applications coming in. We have more subs on our list than we've ever had on our list. So we're really focusing, and we have a new system for hiring subs. So that is working, so.
Well, that leads me to say maybe what we need to see is a review of how that's working, a comparison year over year, how many subs were called in, how many didn't get, how many went how many vacancies we had, how many times, and then
We- and we-
maybe the problem's not as big as it was. So that would be
Yep.
data to look at next year.
Yeah, we have that data available to us. We can definitely prepare that next budget cycle or whenever.
Yeah.
Will say also, we did just this past month onboard 10 new substitutes. So hopefully the problem is getting better through what we've uncovered, and I'm hopeful.
I will just kind of put a plug out there that my little 8-year-old has been pretty upset because there's been so many different subs. And so the impact on our kids, right, about having really inconsistent people all the time, I think even at the elementary school level has been, it's an interesting thing that she had happened to just say to me when we were going into school today was, oh, I don't know who I'm getting today. And it's really disconcerting for her. So I just throw that out there, not just from the perspective of the consistency for the school, which obviously is a huge plus, but also the consistency just for our kids and understanding and recognizing that that does have an impact on them, I think, at times. So I hear there's a huge need for it. I'm not totally against it. It just seems it's one of the bigger line items that kind of stands out the most. So I think it's the first one that gets grabbed at, and I wish there was a better like medium, happy medium for that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, for me, I think once we have our strategic plan, we have our master facilities plan, like kind of layering these things together and understanding what the staffing challenges are, have been and are continue to be moving forward. You know, I think there's a lot of difficult things we've got to work through and try to wrap our heads around over the next year or two. And I would put this up there as one of those key things that is, you know, I think bus substitute drivers has been an issue. That's better now than it was, but that can continually rear its head. There's a few of these pieces that are kind of ongoing challenges that there's probably an opportunity to find new solutions for. But having those other inputs and kind of bringing that all together, I think, you know, we're doing a good job as a group, this committee, but the board itself at dealing with some of the ongoing business, and we're starting to free ourselves up a little bit more for that longer term thinking. So hopefully those are some things we can tackle in the next year or two, because they definitely need to be addressed, I think, moving forward.
A few meetings back, I think you said that our title funding is around $800,000 or $900,000 a year that we get.
So our funding for federal grants is 1.7, little over, almost 1.8 million.
And I think you, again, if I'm remembering, it was like almost equal special ed and
Yes.
title funding, right?
Yeah, and so that includes special education, IDEA, it includes all the title grants and McKinney-Vento, which are all numbers that we have to, we can't lose from our budget.
The reason I say that is I think I'm mistaken, someone will tell me, but I believe the current United States House budget reduces title funding to states. So I don't think we can plan for budgets that don't exist. I think we just need to go full speed ahead, but it's possible the federal government give us less than we're anticipating there. So again, for those of us, as we discussed it, for people listening at home, we can't do anything about that. But we might find out that our federal revenues are less than we expect.
All right. I think we might have flushed them all out for this evening, which is great. So thank you for this, again, for all the work, and thanks for the discussion. And there will be a lot more to come and this as we move forward. So I just want to walk through what we have upcoming. Sorry, I lost my page here just a second. All right, so upcoming, we have our public budget hearings, and we kind of take a roadshow approach to this. So we are going to be visiting Harpswell, Topsom, and Bodenham in the coming week to 10 days. And it'll begin this Wednesday in Harpswell. We'll be at Harpswell Community School, 6:30, to hear similar information and have a discussion with the community there. Then we'll move on the following week, March 18th, we will be at Williams Cone School at 6:30, and March 19th at Bodenham Community School at 6:30. So we invite anybody out there listening, or to let folks know if they want to come hear this parts of this presentation, maybe a little bit more specific information. and then have some questions and answers and a little dialogue. It's a great time to do that.
And Ryan, if someone's unable to attend the meeting in their nearest community, are they welcome at the other meetings?
They certainly are, as we are, what do we say, a community of communities. You are welcome at any of the other ones as well. So please feel free to come to any of the other district meetings, but we're trying to take that to a location near you. And if you can't make it to any of them, the first one, the Harpswell one, is recorded and then is posted online, so you can kind of get a feel or see what is discussed there. With that, nothing else, and we do not have any public here this evening, so there will be no public comment, and I think we will call it a night. So thank you all, and have a great night.